So let's turn to Sue. So Sue, can you tell us about what do you think are the more promising phase 3 strategies? We acknowledge they're not going to be mature, but what do you like? I mean, I hear there's at least a half dozen studies going on, most of which are almost done.
Absolutely. I mean, so just like you mentioned, most of these studies haven't really given us some real mature data that we can hang our hat on. But I think there's certain approaches that are being looked at that look fairly promising. So one thing, for example, that's being looked at is we're targeting the toll-like receptor 9, which is also known as TLR9 agonists. So there's a trial out there with SD101. Jason, I think you were involved in one with CMP001. So these agents are basically, these are intratumoral injections, which are supposed to stimulate stimulate dendritic cells, for example, which are antigen presenting cells. They release more interferon alpha, they cause more maturation of these cells, which can lead to perhaps an augmented T cell response. So the notion behind this is, some of this is how to make these tumor microenvironments more inflamed, more hot, more potentially amenable to T cell mediated responses. The problem, though, is, at least in my experience, is that in my practice, I don't see a lot of patients with injectable disease. And so a lot of my patients end up having visceral disease, and, that may not be injectable. I mean, I certainly don't want to inject into the liver very easily, or lung. I mean, even if, with radiographic imaging guidance, it's just a very tricky situation. And then even patients who do have injectable disease, which I said was few and far between for me, it is just a challenging situation in actually administering the drugs. So they're not the easiest drugs to give, but I certainly think that it opens doors for this particular patient population.
Yeah, and I think that the ipi-tilsatolimod trial also same kind of scenario. That's attractive because, as Jason just said, let's say you start out with Nivo alone, or Pembro alone, or Nivo plus X, where X is not ipi. If you progress, then you could go to ipi plus Y. So that has some attractions, and I guess that we don't have any data on, but I guess there were phase 1/2 data, correct, Sue, if I'm not wrong?
Yes. So the phase 1/2 data there showed a response rate of a little bit less than 40%, I believe, but it was a small number of patients, somewhere between 25 to 30 patients. So again, I think the data is quite early.
And that's now in phase 3. And I guess, Jason, there's the lenvatinib Pembro trial. I've heard some good things about that. I don't know if those are publicly known. I'm not sure that that's been presented, but I like the idea of this pan-TKI plus Pembro.
There are sort of VEGF TKIs, sort of these dirty TKIs, whereas lenvatinib or cabozantinib or axitinib, and many of them, which across a number of disease states now actually look quite promising in combination with an anti-PD-1. They've been approved in some indications that are obvious, like kidney cancer, but that's where VEGF agents are super active. But even in other diseases that are epithelial in origin, and you really wouldn't expect VEGF blockade to have that much activity, cervical cancer, and now colorectal, prostate, and now melanoma.
Oh, hepatocellular too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it's looking very exciting that these combos may actually be able to overcome some of the resistance mechanisms that we've sort of suggested. I wonder to what extent they are actually targeted therapy, and to what extent they're actually chemotherapy, because they do a lot of things. But all the same, when we're thinking about salvaging patients who have progressed on PD-1, I think it's all hands on deck. And certainly the initial results do sound promising.